All right, everybody, you're live.
Thank you, Brian. Chair Fuentes, if you'd like to start.
Yeah, are we ready? Okay. I call this meeting to order. Due to the provisions of the governor's executive orders in 2520 and in 2920, which suspends certain requirements of the Brown Act and the order of the health officer of the County of Sonoma to shelter in place to minimize the spread of COVID-19. The Art and Public Places Committee will be conducting today's meeting in a virtual setting using Zoom webinar. Committee members and staff are participating from remote locations and/or practicing appropriate social distancing. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting as noted on the city's website and as noted on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to speak during item 3, public comments, or during the public hearing items will be able to do so by utilizing the raise hand feature or by pressing 9 on their phone. Then they will be given the ability to address the committee. The recording secretary will take roll.
Let the record reflect that all members, with the exception of Member Bryant, are present.
Okay, there we go. So next up on the agenda is for public comments. If you wish to make a comment via Zoom, please select the raise hand button. If you are dialing in via telephone, please press 9 to raise your hand. Each speaker has 3 minutes. A countdown timer will appear for the convenience of the speaker and the viewers. Please make sure to unmute yourself when you are invited to do so. Your microphone will be muted at the end of that countdown. Do we have any comments from the public who wish to make comments on the Art and Public Places items that are not on the agenda?
Chair Fuentes, no one is raising their hand.
Okay. Let's see here. So if we have no comments, then let's move on to the schedule items, and schedule item 4.1, open and out. It's an opportunity for temporary public art in the Courthouse Square on February 3rd, 2020. The Art and Public Places Committee approved the 2021 annual work plan, which is allocated public art funds for temporary public art installation in the Courthouse Square. There is now an opportunity to direct a portion of all of the funds towards open and out program, with the funds paying artists for temporary art installation and engagement. Tara will now present more information on this item.
Hi, thank you, Lisa, and thank you all for attending today. This opportunity came about as a economic development recovery strategy of helping businesses reopen amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Sorry, I'm going to pause just for a second. Nathan, could you mute your camera? We're getting a lot of, you can keep the camera on, just mute your mic for a minute. Thank you. So thank you for putting this up on the screen. So the Open and Out program, as I was saying, started as a way to reopen downtown, revitalize downtown after being closed up for quite some time. And we looked to other cities for inspiration on how we might be able to provide more space for the businesses downtown to use in terms of the social distancing requirements, as well as encourage a safe place for socializing for people to come downtown with their families, have larger places to walk instead of cramped sidewalks. And so working with a group of partners, including the Metro Chamber, the Santa Rosa Downtown District, Creative Sonoma, the County of Sonoma, and businesses downtown, we have come up with a way to do that, which also provides artists opportunities. So the Open and Out program actually consists of a variety of different components. One was looking at how to allow businesses to use the sidewalk for expanded dining, sidewalk seating type arrangements, how to allow businesses, encourage them to use parklets as a way to extend their footprint and service area, as well as a temporary closure of 4th Street to allow for businesses to use that space as well as pedestrians. And in closing the street, there was a lot of opportunity there in terms of artists being able to beautify and improve, help with wayfinding signage, art installations, other types of things, community engagement, for instance. And so Creative Sonoma and the Downtown District and myself worked very hard to draft a call for artists, which would be a call for artists to an artist pool. So this was attached to the agenda for you to review, and really goes over what the opportunities are for artists, what the process will be when applying to this pool. And so the item in front of the committee today is really to align this opportunity with the funding that the committee previously approved for our next annual plan, which would start this week, July 1st, which stated that temporary projects in Courthouse Square for the next year before the permanent artwork will be installed was something of interest, and the committee allocated and approved $40,000 for those types of projects. And a part of our discussion with that annual plan on that topic was how we might be able to best do that. One idea we discussed was partnering with a nonprofit to expand our capacity to see art placed on the square, which could perhaps bring artists in, could bring up someone to manage that in, things like that. And so when this opportunity came along, it seemed like a good opportunity to align these two things. The request to you today is to approve the direction of those funds, either in part or in whole, to this project, with the understanding that the funding from the public art program would go towards temporary art in the square, as was previously approved by the committee. I actually have on the call Cadence Allenson, who's the executive director of the Downtown District, to kind of chime in with any additional information or to answer any questions that you might have related to the larger program, the spaces we've identified, what other projects are taking place as part of this kind of downtown project. So Cadence is on the line. Perhaps we could make her a panelist in case she needs to chime in, and then both of us can answer any questions.
We are having a small technical issue. I'm going to ask our IT person to see if he can elevate Cadence to a panelist. It's not allowing me to do so. So if you want to continue for just a moment, I will request his help.
Okay, well, if there's any questions that I can answer, and then we'll wait and see if we can get Cadence on the line as well.
Do any of the committee members have any questions for Tara regarding this item? If so, please physically raise your hand. And then also just a reminder right now, it's only for questions. No discussion or recommendations until after we have a motion.
Member Bonos would like to speak.
Yes. So Tara, you said that $40,000 was allocated for temporary art for this coming year. So how much of that is to pay the artists, and how much of that is to pay staff to administer this program?
The $40,000 that was put in the annual plan for this year was 100% to go towards artists, and it still would be in this proposal.
So this proposal says that the projects can be anywhere from, is it $500 to $7,500?
That is a general range that we came up with, yes, but we are not, it does not say that projects over or under that would be excluded, but we did want to establish a general range just so people get an idea of what they're applying for.
Can I ask another question?
Go ahead.
Okay. So it says on the call for artists that projects will be approved on a rolling basis. So what if somebody applies in the very beginning with a large budget? I mean, do you just look at the merits of the project rather than looking at what the budget is relative to the total amount?
Yes, I mean, I see what you're getting at. I think that there are a couple sites within this footprint that we are anticipating will be larger projects than others. The whole call for artists that you have in front of you is not just limited to Courthouse Square, it's the 4th Street space as well. And so there are other funding sources that will be for those projects. So Cadence will actually be managing the budget side of this because the funding is going through the Chamber of Commerce. And so that'll be handled that way, but will be theoretically several pools of money that will be funding public art projects. The public art funding from this committee, if it's approved, would be limited to Courthouse Square projects, since that's what was previously approved. However, if there's a desire to expand that, that's something that the committee could decide or take action on. But that is how I currently propose the item to you today. If a project comes in for Courthouse Square that is, way over the $7,500, general cap on projects, I think we would need to look at that really closely, see what those merits were, see if a larger budget is warranted, and then make that decision. But I think what we'd like to see are a variety of projects occurring, not just one project.
And the timing for this, it says that the applicants must be able to complete their project no later than September 30th. Does that mean that that's the end? What's was the beginning date depend upon when they submit their application?
So that end date was what we had in mind when we came up with that, was that the closure of 4th Street is a tentative pilot project. It's a pilot project with a tentative end date of early October. If some events come downtown, such as Ironman, if Ironman is not able to come to town, then we could look at extending that through November potentially, or into November. And so that is why we put that September date, so that projects would at least be able to be up for a month before potentially having to come down. But there is not necessarily, that doesn't necessarily mean that's set in stone. We want to be flexible. This whole project needs to be nimble and flexible, given that the current circumstances change so quickly with current health orders, et cetera. And so we wanted to be able to put some dates on here that are workable for issuing the call for artists, knowing that they may change or be extended.
Okay. I have more questions, but I don't want to hog the show here. So maybe other people can ask questions, and then if my questions don't get answered, I'll ask them later.
Any committee member have any other questions?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Nathan.
Hi. What's the time frame on how quickly we can make this public, or share the invitation with artists?
This call for artists is actually public right now because all the other partners on it who have funding in the game, including a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts, they were ready to go with it last week. And so, so basically what the addition of the public art funds means is that, we can add our logo to this call for artists. We can share it widely that it's supported by the public art program as well. But it is currently available to share as it is.
Cool. Oh, and I had one other question. There have been a number of, I wouldn't call them informal, but unpermitted kind of cultural happenings in the square, in Courthouse Square, in the last month. And I just wonder if there's any thoughts about interfacing with some of that activity.
Yes, I don't know, you probably noticed there was a last minute change in the agenda. The first item that was originally planned was a discussion with some folks who are organizing a community expression mural, street mural related to the protests, and they needed more time. That they will come back to the committee at some point, but they wanted to postpone their appearance in front of the committee at this time. However, I have spoken to them as well as other artists who are interested in doing some kind of project related to the gatherings and the protests. And I have actually forwarded them to this opportunity, this call for artists opportunity, if they would like to apply. So there is some interface there. I think it can go farther than it has, but there has been some initial outreach.
Cool. Okay, thanks.
Hi, and Cadence, if you would like to unmute, you should be able to join.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Cadence, thanks for joining in. Is there anything you'd like to add? Or if you feel like you could answer a question better than me, which I'm sure you could, please chime in if you would like.
Thanks. I think you covered it pretty well, Tara. It's a unique opportunity we have to kind of combine multiple projects under one call for artists. So pretty excited to be able to not only implement in Courthouse Square, but along 4th Street as well through the Creative Sonoma and NEA grant that we have.
Great, thanks.
I've got a question.
Okay, Jeff, maybe Jeff and then Melanie.
Sure.
Great. First of all, I think this is great. I'm pleased to see that there's this, these multiple temporary projects. I'm always a fan of temporary public art. Question about process. I know that there is a Courthouse Square review panel as well as the APPC here. So in terms of review of these proposals and the selection process, which group is actually overseeing that?
Neither. This is separate from both of those processes. So there's already a kind of informal committee of folks that have been working on this. And so we have set up kind of a proposed structure where there will be general review over the pool of artists by the current committee that's working on this. And that committee includes representatives from all the partners involved here. So the Downtown District, Metro Chamber, Creative Sonoma, and the City of Santa Rosa. And so there will be that general review by that committee, and then should specific projects or sites, such as in Courthouse Square or on a privately owned building exterior wall, for instance, should those be something that the funding is going towards, and there's a project we want to fund, then a separate or an additional selection panel would be set up. And I would propose and recommend that perhaps for the Courthouse Square temporary projects, a member of Art and Public Places join that to represent the group. And so that could happen for those projects, since the funding from the public art program is going towards those projects. That makes that kind of adds you in as a stakeholder in that respect, like we have included the other stakeholders.
Okay, great, thanks. And I assume it would be appropriate for the museum to share this call for artists with our network?
Yes, please do.
Okay.
Is there anyone else?
I think, yeah, Melanie.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. So it says North Bay artists. What does that mean? How far does that go?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think we drew it on a map or had a specific, explicit boundary in mind. I think the general idea was North Bay, meaning not just Sonoma County, not just Santa Rosa, but to include artists who may have studios or residences just slightly out of our county, just to expand that. So, perhaps Mendocino, perhaps Napa, perhaps Marin counties. I think that in my mind is all considered North Bay regional. Cadence, did you have any other specific memory of our conversation about that?
Yeah, I think when we talked about it, we were looking at the potential funding amounts and just realistically thinking we probably wouldn't attract, with the amount that we're trying to generally keep to, we probably wouldn't attract people from outside of the area. But I think, we would, if someone was applying, we would be open to it. But we're anticipating the majority of the applicants to come from the North Bay and hopefully Santa Rosa, Sonoma County.
Okay.
Do I have any other questions from the members? Nina?
So you said there's funding from NEA. Can you tell us how much that is and if there's amounts of other funds that you can give us a feeling for? I'd like that.
Thank you. Yeah, Cadence, I think you have a better grasp of the budget than I do. My memory is that the NEA funds is around 60,000. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that the NEA amount is 50, and then you have another 10 from Creative Sonoma.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
And then, so for a total of 60 dedicated to the various projects we laid out.
Mhm.
And then there's potential, we are raising more funds depending on how the budget comes through. We'd like to be able to fund additional projects. It'll just depend on how much we raise above the already committed 60.
And one more question. Are there other local jurisdictions that are doing this? And I'll just give you the other question also. If there's other jurisdictions around the country that have done this, are there any like links that you can give us to look at what other places have done or are doing?
Yeah, it's actually kind of exciting because we are serving as the pilot program for Creative Sonoma. And the NEA actually featured the partnership in their most recent newsletter, which is pretty cool. But Creative Sonoma's plan, and they actually just went out it went out last week, is to kind of replicate what we're trying to do in every other Sonoma County district. So we are kind of the guinea pigs for how this will work. And ideally, they'll be able to take what we've put together and how we've done our outreach and brought people in and replicate that in the four other districts.
Could you send us the NEA newsletter where it mentions this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Tara, do you have that?
Yeah, I can forward it to the committee for sure.
Nina, and to give I know Kristen had some different ideas, and she sent me more information on other cities who are also doing this. And one was Baltimore, and they had a 60-page color PDF that you could flip through that had a lot of ideas on how to do this. Kristen, and you had a lot more information when it came to art and design for distancing. You want to, you're muted.
I'm unmuted, yeah.
There.
So the program that I was looking at from Baltimore is called Design for Distancing. And that was mainly, it was a program where they were opening it up to designers to come up with solutions for how to create parklets and kind of create less of a disturbance between the curb and then the right of way. So if projects or if spaces are extending out into the bike lanes, taking over 2 parking spaces, etc., how could designers really be integrated into this process? I would be happy to share more information about this program, but it was a program that wanted to give inspiration for how we could practice social distancing and reopen some businesses to have more outdoor seating. That was really the intent of the program. There were lots of bright, very neat designs and schematics in there, but none were proposed public art pieces that got to be installed.
Yeah, and I can chime in briefly that we did a lot of research in trying to plan this program, the whole Open and Out program, and looked at a lot of other cities who have done similar revitalization type of initiatives to help their downtowns reopen. Berkeley closed down a street. there's several in the Bay Area, several in Sonoma County that were considering it. I think we're the first ones actually doing it, but I think Petaluma, Healdsburg, and Windsor were all discussing it. Tampa, Florida was another kind of model we looked at, but not specifically for public art. It was more like how they're closing the streets, what kind of space they're creating to allow businesses to expand. So I can't say that I have any great links to share along those lines, but I do think what Kristen has is was very inspiring, even if it wasn't explicitly public art.
I had one more question about timeline. So if the deadline to respond to the call for artists is July 31st, is evaluation of projects that have been submitted, will that take place after July 31st, or will it kind of take place as projects come in?
Yeah, the latter. As projects come in, this really is set up as a pool of artists. So we theoretically could be working on several things all at once, but with slightly different timelines, depending on what applications come into the pool and what artists are interested in doing. One of the reasons why we set the call up like we did with the pool structure, and then identifying the possible types of projects such as artistic upgrades, temporary installations, wayfinding, signage and graphics, and community engagement. We did that because we wanted to have an artist know those are the areas we're looking at, but if you have another idea, you can also submit that. So we're really open. We're looking for artists to have their ideas, bring them to us, be a part of a pool that then we can match them up with appropriate projects. And so the review of specific designs and the selection of designs will be really happening in a kind of fluid timeline as we can move projects forward.
Have any more questions? Eileen, do we have any public comments regarding this item?
I do not see any hands raised at this time.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve all or a portion of the funds towards open and out program? Jeff,
Yep. Yes.
do you motion? Are you
I move to approve the, so move,
to approve
we're
all of
presented.
the funds or a portion of
All of the funds.
funds towards the open and out program?
Yes, I move to portion all of the funds to the open and out program.
Okay, perfect. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Okay, there we go. All in favor? Okay, and now we open it.
Wait.
Oh, wait, no, we have to open it up for discussion. My apologies.
Discussion,
So now this is the time that we could actually discuss this this item on here. And so if the committee members would please raise your hand, give your opinions, give your recommendations, and we can go from there. Nina?
So the call for artists that we have, I don't know exactly where in here, but I read somewhere that it relates to visual arts and performing arts. Can you tell me, Tara, what paragraph I should look at to see how that's divided up?
Yes, the first page under eligibility, it says artists and arts organizations. Artists can be from any discipline, including visual, performing, design, media, audio and video, etc., literary and storytellers, lighting and sound design.
So I'm wondering if we should make some kind of guideline to amend the motion that we just passed to break it down so the different media are represented. Do you think that that's too restrictive with such a short time period, or can we have a little discussion about that?
Having made the motion, I think it's better to keep the motion general, and the call for artists lays out the range of art forms that would be acceptable in this program. And I think if we make it too restrictive, if we try to allocate a percentage or the specific funds to any one particular art form, it'll make it extremely difficult for review of the proposals in the general, within the general realm of what this project is about.
Yeah, that's a good point. Also, it seems like the amount of money might be fluid. We're allocating $40,000, but it looks like there's other organizations that might chip in more money. So if there were, let's say, all visual and we get some storytellers or something, another media, that maybe more funds would be forthcoming. Okay, I just wanted to discuss it to see what people thought. I appreciate Jeff's comment.
Kristen? Yeah.
I agree with Jeff's statement about keeping this as broad as possible with the goal of flexibility in mind. I think the more we can kind of fit in flexibility into our goals, it would produce for more opportunities of projects. I'm really interested to see where this goes as a program, this being the first of its kind for this area. Also unique that we have multiple projects under one call for artists is really unique. I think this will be a major benefit to our downtown and for creating space and place and significance. And hopefully will show some economic development or responses to the goals that have been set forth here. So I hope that this is a productive way to enhance our downtown. I have questions about, in terms of prioritizing spaces, I think the call for artists does a great job in terms of saying what the eligibility is, review criteria, and then examples of projects. I wonder if there's an opportunity to kind of get some creative juices going with kind of I don't know if a Facebook or just inspiration images are relevant for this time. If there's a way to kind of, or if we should just be waiting on our pool of very creative artists in our community to respond. Those have kind of been my questions.
Great, thanks, Kristen. Anyone else? Or you did have some questions, so I'm wondering, did you want Tara, or were you looking for Candace to answer?
Chair Fuentes?
Not a state. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just noting that your hand was raised.
Oh, thank you. I hope there's an opportunity for different artists to get their work brought to light in light of what's happening around the world. I hope those things are able to be reflected in this proposal as well, and that people aren't too narrow in the selection of the art that's selected to be presented.
Thank you, Melanie. If you don't mind, Lisa, I would like just to clarify one thing in the motion. The motion as it stands, I feel like in order for the funds to be used throughout the whole project area and not just Courthouse Square, we should add that to the motion, but I don't know if that was the intention of your motion, Jeff, or the will of the committee. So I'm wondering how folks feel about that, if the funds should just be dedicated to the Courthouse Square site as originally approved in the annual work plan, or if there's an interest in seeing the funds go towards other public art installations that may be along 4th Street, for instance.
Well, I'm kind of torn because initially we did say that, people were really wanting things at Courthouse, but I feel like this is an opportunity to expand a little bit beyond that, what we were originally thinking. So I'd be in favor of opening it up beyond Courthouse Square.
I agree with that. And I also think one of the reasons we're doing this, one of the challenges we have is getting people to come back downtown to start circulating around to the various businesses and restaurants that might be open. And so I think if we expand this down 4th Street and we allow for other projects to happen, it helps with the entire purpose of making downtown a more interesting and attractive place to come in during a very scary time.
Kristen?
I also support opening it up to projects outside of Courthouse Square. I don't want to lose sight of prioritizing Courthouse Square, but I do think that as we see in the call for artists, the list of suggested artistic opportunities ranges outside of Courthouse Square, and I would like for our funding to go towards a myriad of options and enhancements for this area.
Tara, I have a question for you. If we go ahead and we do something like that and expand it outside of Courthouse Square, is it still going to be part of this open and out project? And since what I'm looking at is focusing on Courthouse Square.
Yes, so the proposal would be to dedicate the funds towards the open and out program using the current call for artists and the review and selection structure that I described, but expand the use of the funds from only projects in Courthouse Square to projects in Courthouse Square, as well as up and down 4th Street in the entire footprint of the open and out closure, road closure.
But then we're asking to expand outside the closure, correct?
No.
Oh.
No.
No. Okay.
No, so the two options are, one, the public art funds can only go towards projects in Courthouse Square itself. That's how it would originally kind of transfer over, because that's how you allocated those funds originally in your annual work plan. The thing I am bringing up as an alternative option to that would be, since we have a program now established, a call for artists for an artist pool for the open and out program, which covers more than Courthouse Square. It covers the corridor between B Street and E Street in 3 different sections of road closures, and that the funds could go towards the art projects in the entire footprint, not just Courthouse Square, but not outside of that footprint.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay. And do I have any more comments? Nina?
So it relates to parking, and I just really wonder why parking is being charged again for downtown when everybody's trying to get people to come downtown. If there is a performance, I mean, if the city insists on keeping the parking charged, if we have a specific performance through this program, is it possible to get parking waived to advance attendance for that? Or is parking something that we can't comment or request?
Hi, Nina. Yeah, I understand. I think the main key piece to understand with that is that the activities planned here, the public art installations and even performances, are not meant to be an event that gathers a crowd, because we are still under current health orders, and we have framed and structured this whole program to make safe space for people who would normally be coming downtown to come downtown. And so really the scenario where there would be an influx of people coming to downtown and would need to find a parking spot, we want to avoid that. And the parking issue on its own is really a separate issue related to how the parking district can manage turnover in parking spaces. So I don't really want to go into that.
Yeah.
But that's my take on it, is that it really should not be an issue because we're trying to keep people out of crowd situations.
I totally understand and appreciate your comment. You know, it's hard to wrap our head around that there's a new reality, and I forgot.
No worries. Good question.
Could I make a small suggestion?
Yes, Nathan?
Yes, maybe I missed this in the PDF, but if there is a site map of the existing road closures, I think that might be helpful for people who are submitting projects.
Thank you. Yeah, that's an excellent suggestion. We are currently working on maps as we speak. So that should be forthcoming and can be added to the website where the Call for Artists lives.
Yeah, but I think there are probably a lot of people out there whose projects might be context specific or might have an eye towards that, and it would probably help them. It would probably help sort of develop proposals.
Agreed.
Yeah, just to be able to see that.
Oh, Melanie, and then Kristen.
Okay, I might have missed this, but is there a limit or a time frame on how long the installation should be up? Is it in here anywhere?
Yeah, it says our kind of proposed timeline at this point is that the project should be able to be completed before September. Where's that date?
I saw the September 30th date.
I think that's it. Of course,
So
I
if
can't
you
find it
you
right
get so
yes, September 30th.
So the idea is that if you get selected in June and you get your project up, it would stay up the whole time, or?
Yes, but with the understanding that some of the projects that are included in this call may be permanent. So like the painting of planter boxes or a wall mural or some type of lighting situation. There's several scenarios that it could be a permanent installation. And so the Call for Artists allows for that as well. And but for instance, if an artist is proposing to put a sculpture in Courthouse Square, it would theoretically need to come down when the Open and Out project ends. So so I think that we put that date in there, hoping that complete their project means they install it, so that at least had a month to be up. So that's what that date is for. And I'm like I said before, flexibility is key with this project, so we may need to relook at that, revisit that as we move through the projects.
Okay.
The existing sort of conclusion of the project is October 30th.
Yeah, as I said before, right now there is the potential that we may have an Ironman date rescheduled from their other dates, and so that could take place the weekend of October 17th. And so theoretically projects would need to be out of that area and the streets would need to be reopened that week. If that does not take place, we can look at extending it if there's an interest in doing so from the participating businesses and business district.
Great, thanks.
I think Kristen still had a question.
It wasn't a question, it was a comment to Nathan, just letting you know if you are in communication with people who have questions about the Open and Out program, the city does have information on their website. You go to Planning and Economic Development and then scroll down to their newsflash section. The expanded sidewalk and parklet program, which is Open and Out, is highlighted there, and you can direct them
Thank you.
to a description of the street closures. Yeah.
Pardon me for one moment. I just wanted to acknowledge that member Bryant has joined.
Hello.
I'm sorry I'm late.
I would also like to make a comment. COVID-19 has severely affected many small businesses within Santa Rosa, and I would like to recommend the Open and Out project to take an opportunity to use the APPC contributions and support small businesses in downtown, all while simultaneously serving as a connection point to educate our community. This can be an opportunity to change the way we see ourselves and one another by standing in solidarity with the most marginal among us and help keep the momentum of the Black Lives Matter movement. Do I have any other comments?
How are you asking for support?
This has to do with what we're discussing on the agenda item 4.1.
Okay.
Okay. So do I have no other comments? All righty.
Actually, I have a question.
Okay. Janina?
I'm remembering back to a few years ago when we had some temporary art projects, and one of them was the meter maid sculpture, and another. There were just several projects in that round of approvals that took way longer than they were supposed to take to actually be installed. And this is a really short time period for application and then for the projects to happen. What happens if a certain amount of money is awarded to somebody for a project and they don't follow through?
So Nina, the projects are being run through the Metro Chamber and the Downtown District. They are not being run through the city. So the city does not have to do the contracting requirements with artists to pay them. That speeds up the process quite a bit, to be honest with you.
Right.
However, one thing I'll mention is we did state in the call for artists, applicants must be able to complete their projects no later than September 30th as a way to try to avoid some late projects. And then furthermore, the agreements that I am sharing with the Metro Chamber for their use in this project, I will work with Cadence on making sure we have some language in there like we do for city contracts, which pays an artist in a series of payments so that they do not get their final payment until they are installing their project or just prior to installation. Or just after installation. So there's a variety of ways we can help mitigate problems like that that I think will work for this project as well.
Good.
Kristen?
I have a clarification to make. In the call for artists, it says ineligible projects include landscaping. And then down below it, we talk about the opportunity for artistic upgrades to planters. Is this
excluding plants. I think it says excluding plantings. So the planters themselves are terracotta or cement, and we are interested in having artists paint them as the surface or do some kind of installation on the planter container themselves, but not the landscaping component of planting plants. That will be done separately outside of this call for artists.
And could there be an opportunity to install a new type of planter, or would it only be the use of existing terracotta or cement planters?
Cadence, I think you could answer that one, but I can chime in if you need me to.
Yeah, so Kristen, we've actually kind of begun the process of upgrading the existing planters downtown. I don't know if you've noticed that, but we had a few removed, and we've painted all the orange planters and the welcome pillars. They're all now black, and that was essentially to create kind of a blank canvas for an artist. So right now we'd like to move forward with the same planters. That's not to say that if there was a ceramicist interested in applying and coming up with something creative, we couldn't have an additional opportunity. But for now, I mean, there are 120 planters downtown. So I don't know that we could replace those within any of the budgets that we're looking at here. So definitely opportunity for something different or additional, but not replacement.
Do I have any other comments? Would someone like to make an amendment to this motion? The motion?
I think the appropriate question to Jeff is does his motion still stand, or would he like to make any changes to it? And then you would need to ask Kristen if she still wants to second that motion.
Okay. Thank you,
So
Tara.
I guess my question would be if an amendment would actually be necessary in order to expand the scope of the motion to address beyond Courthouse Square. My understanding is that the motion would allow for that to happen. And certainly the minutes of this meeting would support that. But if you think I should amend the motion to clarify that, I'm happy to do so.
Thanks, Jeff. I think that it would be appropriate, since you made the motion, to just reword it slightly by saying the funds, public art funds are going to the Open Out program for use in the entire footprint of the Open and Out program, something along those lines.
So moved, what you just said. That's perfect.
Well, I think we need you to say
Got
that.
it.
though.
No,
I think
I think,
Okay.
yeah, go ahead and.
So I move that we appropriate all of the funds for the Open Out program for Courthouse Square and 4th Street projects.
Great, thank you, Jeff.
Kristen, do you still second that?
Yes, I still second this motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Raise their-
Aye.
Any opposed? So the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. So next item on the agenda, number 4.2, project updates. Tara will now present more information on this item.
Yes. So in lieu of our regular monthly meetings, I have been trying to send a list of project updates by email near the first Monday of the month. So the last time I did that was in early June, and I thought I would just go through the list of our ongoing events and give you the brief updates that I have this time around. So nothing is new since my last email regarding the Imagine Art in Courthouse Square project. However, I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of the new timeline, which really restarts the project as of this week on July 1st. And the deadline for the finalists to submit their proposals online is August 3rd. The online display of their projects, of the finalist projects, will be in August, all through most of September, August 10th through September 20th, with opportunities for feedback and engagement on those. We're trying to come up with creative ways to do that in a shelter-in-place type situation. So we'll make sure you're aware of what those opportunities are as they're developed. On October 2nd, the selection panel will make their final selection, and then they will recommend that final artist selection to the Art and Public Places Committee at the October 5th committee meeting. Then we would move on to entering into an artist services agreement with that selected artist in October through November. And then artwork fabrication will take place November 2020 all the way through December 2021. And we're looking at the artwork installation in early 2022, January and February. So this timeline has been delayed about 6 months since due to COVID, and it is now back on track with that new timeline. All of the artists who are finalists are aware of this and have agreed to continue as finalists with the project given the new timeline. For the public art strategic planning, there's nothing new since my last email. The crisis team is meeting to do their part of the work, and then we will transition into a strategic planning steering committee, and that will include more of the committee members. Some or all of you may have been contacted by our consultants for stakeholder interviews, and that will continue as we move into the strategic planning steering committee. And we are hoping we can engage the entire committee in a group setting with the consultants at some point in the future, either in person or through Zoom. So that is the way that is another way that you will be involved in the process. Coffee Park Public Art Project had a new development in the last week or so. This last Friday, I met the artists on site to supervise the cement pad pouring for the art plaza. The placement of the templates for each of the seating elements and the center mosaic were placed very carefully with the artist's input. And they also supervised the seating or the placement of the glow in the dark aggregate into the wet cement to make sure that it was placed properly. I took photos, so I will make sure that I send those out to you soon so you can see a little progress update there. The 3 sculptures, the seating elements themselves, are anticipated to be installed sometime in mid to late August. The park is slated to reopen late September, I believe, at this point. And so if the sculptures are installed prior to the park being open, they would be secured within the fence line of this construction zone. But it may work out to have them in there sooner rather than later. So the fabricator of them, the studio that's fabricating them, doesn't have to store them for that month gap, if that makes sense. So I will provide more updates as we have them for that project. And for ongoing maintenance and conservation, I just, we work at that as we can, and our firm, conservator firm, just started finishing up the final touches to the Stephen Novak panels, which are installed at the downtown library. So they were there on site last week doing some final work there, and then they'll be moving on to some other pieces as we can support them doing that. And then I think my last update last time was about our ongoing art exhibits at city facilities. They're still suspended since those facilities are currently closed or used for very limited activities. So Jessica, our arts specialist, has worked very hard to work with some of the artists who had planned exhibits to get their work online in a virtual format. And that is a part of the new Inside Out There website. And I believe I included the link in my last update. That site is now live. It's insideoutthere.com. And you can see that it's been really launched as of this week. And I really encourage you to pass it around to your artist friends, your artist community, your maker community, businesses you like to frequent, because it will grow. The site will grow as more businesses are listed on there, as well as artists and makers. So get it out there as broadly as you can and have them sign up to be on there. I think that's it for my project updates.
The next item on the agenda is number 5, committee member reports. Do any committee members wish to make a report at this time? If so, please raise your hand. Monica?
Well, I'm going to be in a Black Lives Matter exhibit at the Fulton Gallery at the end as July 17th. They're doing a show. Anyway, it's taking shape.
And is that going to open to the public, or is that going to be online?
Well, Sandy is coming over to see me about the work on the 6th, and I was enthused to be involved, but then I wonder how it's going to work, yeah. But I know the museum is opening, so that's good. So I'm not sure how they're going to do it. It'll be the small gallery in front.
Okay, and you'll keep us posted then.
Yes, I'll send you something as I know.
Wonderful. Okay, great. Thank you, Monica. Nina?
I participated in the National Arts Drive, which was on June 20th. It was a Saturday from 1 to 4 p.m. And there was artists in the United States, Mexico, and Canada that had art outside. I had art on my sidewalk and driveway, and people either drove by and came and saw the art at a distance. And it was a really good, really great event.
Yeah. Jeff?
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Okay, good. So I'm pleased to announce that the Museum of Sonoma County will be reopening, cautiously reopening, starting July 1st, this Wednesday. We will be open for members only, the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. And then next week we will reopen to the public, and that reopening will take place July 9th, and then into the future for some extended period at reduced hours. So typically we're open 6 days a week. We'll only be open 4 days a week, Thursday through Sunday. And then we will also be open on Mondays by appointment for people who need special accommodations for any reason. So anyway, it's time to come back and look at some history and art and be culturally inspired.
Thanks, Jeff.
I had a question for Jeff.
Nina?
Oh,
Nina.
I got your announcement in the mail and I was wondering how that is going to happen. Is it going to be something like the grocery stores or Costco where there's somebody at the door and you have a total number do not exceed, and if it gets, can you tell us?
Yeah, so I can just briefly give you an overview. We are following the best practices guidelines from the county, as well as the American Alliance of Museums and the Smithsonian, which we're a Smithsonian affiliate museum. So we've taken all of the guidelines and put them into our own guidelines, which limits the number of people who can be in our galleries at any given time. And in either one of our buildings, just so you know, the maximum number of people will be 30. And, you know, just to put that in context, for example, the maximum occupancy in our history building is over 200. So it's greatly reduced attendance. Masks are required. We've installed sneeze guards at all our reception stations. We will have gallery monitors reminding people about social distancing of 6 feet or beyond. We have hand sanitizing stations, and we have staff who are being trained to disinfect all surfaces, restrooms, and pretty much any space where the public might go throughout both of our buildings, at least on an hourly basis, if not more frequently. And we also have new protocols and scheduling in terms of our staff and social distancing. And so we're not putting many people in one room at one time. So we're taking every possible precaution. One thing I will say is that there was a national report of the ranking on 1 to 10 of safety to danger for every kind of business and venue you can imagine. And museums were only 3 on the list, 10 being, you know, a crowded bar with no masks and, you know, that kind of thing. But museums naturally are a place where you can social distance, and it's pretty easy to control the way people move through our buildings.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jeff. I think we all look forward to visiting the museum when it opens.
Yeah, please do. Be good to see you. I mean, you know, as much of you as I can see.
Exactly. Anyone else? Then we'll go on to the next item on the agenda, number 6, department reports. Tara, do you have anything for department reports?
Not at this time. I've got Raisa De La Rosa was able to join in. If she has anything, she could chime in. Otherwise, we can just move on today. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Well, if that's
Hi, Raisa.
well, if that's the case, then I guess our next meeting of Art in Public Places is scheduled for Monday, August 3rd, 2020. And the meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
See you.
For our first Zoom webinar, I think that was pretty good. So thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Yes. Thanks, Tara.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. I think that went really well.